So it seems of the blue wall states, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, it's that last one, Pennsylvania, that doesn't seem to be coming along quite as much as the other two. Both Michigan and Wisconsin right now pretty much are states that look like they are going to be in the blue column, but if we look at a lot of the polling, it shows that Pennsylvania might be a little bit more of a toss-up, maybe even going to the Republican side. But in today's video, we are going to talk about that. We are going to be looking at the numbers in Pennsylvania, not just some of the polling numbers. As a matter of fact, very little of the polling numbers. We're going to actually look at voter registration numbers and previous election results numbers and show how likely it is for the Democrats to win in Pennsylvania. And actually, it's a little bit more likely than the polls are leading on to. So let's go ahead and delve into this and take a look at Pennsylvania. Hi, my name is Dave Trotter. Welcome to Voting Trend. I've been working in politics for over 30 years and got my master's degree in voting behavior from McGill University. So if you like what you see on this channel, please hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell so you can be notified about the videos that I have out usually every day or every other day. So thank you for joining my channel. So the first question is Pennsylvania becoming more Republican? And if we look at the voter registration statistics, the answer is yes, it is becoming more Republican. Over the last 4 years, the Democrats have lost about 91,000 voters, whereas the Republicans have gained about 103,000 voters. Now, the Democrats still have the advantage when it comes to voter registration numbers, but that gap is narrowing. So it was at about a 6.4% advantage for the Democrats in 2020, but now in 2024, that's down to 4%. So you can see that is actually becoming significantly shorter and smaller of a gap. However, is that a bad thing? And that's the real big question, because even though the Democrats are losing voters, those who are registering now as non-party affiliates or non-affiliated voters, which is right now the largest chunk of people registering in Pennsylvania, they seem to be becoming more Democratic. So let's take Allegheny County, for example. So in Allegheny County, the Democrats actually losing a percentage of the registered voters in that county. However, the results of elections continue to increase more and more for the Democrats, showing that these non-affiliated voters are more likely to vote Democratic. And we see these statistics in other counties as well. So even though the voter registration numbers might be lower and the state might be becoming more Republican as far as registration, the actual vote totals are still favoring the Democratic side. So if you're a Democrat, you have to look at that number and say, that's pretty good. Now, when we look at Pennsylvania as a whole, we talk about two different regions, but these two regions aren't necessarily that important, or I should say they don't necessarily have a huge impact on the vote over the last few election cycles. So the first one that a lot of people talk about is Western Pennsylvania, particularly the greater Pittsburgh area. Now, yes, Hillary Clinton lost this area by over 4% in the 2016 elections, but in 2012, Barack Obama only lost it by like 1.1%. And in 2020, Joe Biden lost it by 2.3%. So there was like a 1.1% difference. Now, overall, Pittsburgh, or the greater Pittsburgh area and the counties around it, are about 20% of the electorate. So it does have a big chunk. But as far as the overall change in the vote, it really hasn't changed. Now, a lot of people might think that it has because they look at an electoral map and they say, oh, this area has become a lot more red in these other counties. And that's true. However, the shift has happened that you have the counties around Allegheny County becoming more Republican, whereas you have Allegheny County itself becoming more Democratic. So it's not as if the region is shifting to the Republican side. It's just within that region, the places that are Republican are becoming more Republican, and the places that are Democratic are becoming more Democratic. But overall, it's pretty stagnant as to how that vote is actually moving. Now, this is the same thing with Philadelphia and the suburbs. This is an area that really, over the last 3 election cycles on the presidential level, hasn't really moved. Now, this is an important part for the Democrats because this is about 44% of the overall Democratic vote. Of the vote that the Democrats will get in the election, 44% of that will come from Philadelphia and the suburban counties around Philadelphia. So it's very, very important. But what we see in the numbers is there really hasn't been much of a change. We see between Joe Biden and going all the way back to Barack Obama, there's only been a few percentage points, like a 1.5% difference between the campaigns. So there really isn't that huge of an impact. This part of the state is about 1/3, 33% of the overall electorate in the state. But as I mentioned, it's about 44% of the Democratic electorate. So it's important. But it hasn't really moved at all. Now, if there is one part of this that is a little bit worrying for the Democrats, it's the city of Philadelphia itself. Now, the city of Philadelphia has become slightly more Republican. It's still a Democratic stronghold, but it's gone from 85% Democratic in 2012 to 81% Democratic in 2020, and voter turnout has increased during that time. So this is the place where Democrats have a big anchor with their votes, but Philadelphia is actually giving the Democrats less and less votes. So between 2012 and 2020, the Democrats have only picked up about 15,000 votes in the city of Philadelphia, which is not that many, considering if you look at Fayette County, for example, which is about 7% of what Philadelphia County has as far as their voter registration population. It actually is giving Trump just as many votes as Philadelphia is in excess giving the votes for whoever the Democratic candidate is. So one of the biggest problems that the Democrats have is they have Philadelphia becoming a little bit less Democratic, and when that turnout goes up, it gives more votes to the Republicans. So basically, if we look at the suburban area of Philadelphia right now, it is what's carrying the water in this area. Philadelphia is going down, but you have other counties like Montgomery County, Bucks County, and others, Delaware County, bringing up the numbers for the Democrats. Now, the one region nobody is talking about, everyone's so focused on Philadelphia, Western Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh area. There's one region that absolutely has devastated Democrats. It is the Lehigh Valley, or northeastern Pennsylvania. Now, back in 2012, Barack Obama won this region by a small 0.2%, so it was very close. However, 2016, 4 years later, Hillary Clinton loses it by 21%. Huge number, actually 21.9%, almost 22%, a huge loss. Now, when Joe Biden comes in, they're the supposed hometown boy from Scranton, Pennsylvania, he gets about 17.5% of the votes in 2020, but the damage had already been done, and this is a place where Democrats have done poorly. So now, if we want to talk about Democrats improving here, this is where it's pretty good. This is where there's actually some good news. So back when Barack Obama won this area, he had 49% of the vote, and then when Hillary Clinton came in, she went all the way down to 37%, with Joe Biden at about 40% of the votes in 2020. Now, the most recent New York Times Siena poll shows Kamala Harris at 43% of the vote in the northeast part of the state. If she pulls off 43% of the vote in this election, it's over. Democrats win, assuming everything else stays stagnant, which, looking at the numbers over the last few cycles, it does seem like there's not going to be many shifts around the state, except for maybe this northeast section. If she gets 43%, game, set, match. It's over. Democrats win the state of Pennsylvania. Now, another thing that people aren't really talking about, but I think is kind of important, is that in counties where you are starting to see decent amount of increases in actual votes, like more people are moving there, you have more voters registering to vote, they're usually going to be more Democratic, whereas a lot of the places where Donald Trump has increased his vote over the last 2 election cycles, you're seeing kind of a stagnant population, and in some places even going down in population. So for example, in Montgomery County, you see that the Republicans have had a decrease in 7% of their totals. They've really started going down in Montgomery County. However, the population, the overall population of the registered voters has gone up 11%. So that means less voters for Donald Trump, more voters overall, that's going to add to the overall number. Now, if you take Fayette County, which I mentioned earlier, talking in comparison to Philadelphia County, you actually have a 10% decrease in the amount of voters voting there, yet the numbers have gone up 13% for Donald Trump during this time. So you do have this dynamic that as a county is growing in most parts, not all counties, but most counties, as it's growing, they're more likely to become Democratic. So this just builds more and more on to what the Democrats can do in the November election. Now, one of the biggest flaws that people are going to make, or they're going to look at the gubernatorial election results in 2022, 2018, 2014, and think that those could be replicated, but they really can't. Gubernatorial candidates in Pennsylvania usually outperform the presidential candidates on the Democratic tickets. So Josh Shapiro, for example, won Lucerne County. Tom Wolf won it twice, but chances are the Democratic candidate's going to lose it by 10% or even more. So what you see happening at the gubernatorial level should not be a replication of what could happen at the state level on the presidential election. With the presidential election, it usually doesn't do that. It's usually not going to be like that. Now, I know a lot of people are out there saying, well, what if he would have picked Josh Shapiro? Well, ask Mitt Romney how picking Paul Ryan to win the state of Wisconsin worked. Didn't work out that well. And I know people are going to say, oh, well, he was a congressman. Still, same concept. It's not going to work. What happens in the gubernatorial race, what happens in the presidential race are two different electorates. One's a midterm election, one's a presidential year election, two totally different set of circumstances. So don't just say that's going to replicate here. It's not. Now, while the Democrats do have their work cut out for them, I think they are in the position of advantage. They still have a voter registration advantage. The places where they can turn out the vote, like I said, the population is increasing in those counties, so that is a good thing as well. And with the latest poll numbers that we see out of Northeast Pennsylvania, if Kamala Harris is able to get over 40%, chances are they're going to win the state. If she gets 43% or higher in the Northeast part of the state, game over. It's done. Kamala Harris wins. So I think that the Democrats are in a good position to win the state of Pennsylvania, reestablishing the blue wall, but it will be hard. It will be close, but maybe not as close as some people think. That's just my pontification of the state. So thank you all very much for joining me. I hope to see you again. I am going to be doing all the swing states over the next few weeks because we only have a few more weeks left. But I'll be back with some more polling data as soon as it comes out. Just nothing has really come out that has really been worth discussing. So I will see you all later. Have a wonderful day wherever it is you are. Make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and join the channel. Thank you very much. Have a great day wherever it is you are. Bye-bye.